This week, two things happened to Palworld at almost the exact same time, and together they tell a story that has to be driving Nintendo and the Pokemon Company insane. The first thing that happened is that for 2 years now, Nintendo has been building a legal case against Palworld. They have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on legal battles and have produced multiple patent infringement cases against Palworld, all in an attempt to shut down what they view as their biggest competition. And their latest move was to chase a brand new patent that took aim at Palworld Mobile. However, breaking news folks, just yesterday the Japanese patent office weighed in and well, they kind of destroyed Nintendo here. Not only did they reject their patent attempt, they did it for just about the most embarrassing reason possible, and I'll show you that in just a second. But here's the second thing that happened to Palworld. In the same week, almost the same few days even, Palworld dropped its 1.0 update and the game exploded in popularity for a second time. This has been one of the biggest weeks any game has had on Steam all year, climbing over titles that have run the platform for over a decade. So think about this from Nintendo's side for a second, okay? You spend 2 years and a fortune trying to shut a game down, and in the same week one of your cases against it takes its worst hit yet. That game has one of the best moments of its entire life right in front of you. That's what we're getting into today. We're going to jump into what just happened with Nintendo's legal battle, as well as Palworld's recent success, and then the real question everyone came here for after all of this: is Palworld actually better than Pokemon? We'll answer that later, but first let's jump right into this article that was posted over on the Games Fray. This has been the #1 source of information regarding the Pokemon versus Palworld legal battle, and this was posted yesterday. Japan Patent Office rejects Nintendo's touchscreen monster capture patent and its attack on use of indie gameplay video as prior art. That's right folks, an indie gameplay video was used to destroy Nintendo and the Pokemon Company here, and it's actually way more embarrassing than that, and I'll show you why in just a second. I promise you, it is actually like poetic how badly they dunked on Nintendo and the Pokemon Company here. Like, it's kind of insane. Look who came to say hi. She saw me grab a treat for her because we recently hit 40,000 subscribers, and I told you guys on a community post that I would give her extra treats, and I did give her treats over the last 2 days, but I wanted to film this one for you, and she's asking so gently, so I'll give her a treat. Tiger said, guys, thank you for 40,000 subscribers, and as she gets brown crunchy dust all over my shorts, please consider leaving a thumbs up on this video. It really helps out the channel a ton, and I really do appreciate all of the support you guys have shown on this channel over the last year at this point. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And Tiger thanks you guys as well. Now the article starts with the context with which all of this lives, okay? And if you've been following the channel for a while, then you know that back in June, they, and subsequently we, covered here on the channel that Nintendo has zero chance of prevailing over current Palworld versions, and at best they will get $30,000 chump change. Okay, so the main legal battle that Nintendo has been fighting against Palworld is basically dead. Okay, it is a dead lawsuit walking, as they have listed here. But what we haven't covered here on the channel, and now this is the latest update here, is that Nintendo also tried to obtain a Japanese monster capturing patent with a touchscreen focus, presumably with Palworld Mobile in the crosshairs. Now Palworld Mobile was announced a while ago, and this patent attempt by Nintendo actually was reported on while I was in Japan, so I wasn't able to talk about this here on the channel. So if you're wondering why I never covered it, that's actually why. Okay, but luckily we're talking about it today because, as it states here, the first reaction by the Japan Patent Office was actually pretty negative regarding Nintendo's attempt at obtaining a monster capturing patent with touchscreen focus. But what's new? Okay, this is what just happened yesterday and why we're making this video. The Japan Patent Office has gone from a first warning to a final examination decision. In rejecting the application once again, and now at a more advanced procedural stage, the Japan Patent Office gave short shrift to Nintendo's argument that an indie gameplay video, which allegedly infringed Pokemon related copyrights, was ineligible as prior art. What does this actually mean in layman's terms? Okay, so basically what happened was, and just to be clear, okay, I am not a lawyer, I am not a legal professional, and nothing in this video or even on this channel is legal advice. Okay, absolutely not. I am just top 3 biggest goofballs on the internet talking about things that I find find interesting, okay? But my understanding here is that a lot of times when you have things like patent infringement lawsuits, prior art is produced as part of that legal battle to determine if something is actually original or not, right? So in other words, if a company says, hey, we want a patent on this specific gameplay mechanic, then the defense there could say, hey, well, wait a minute, you can't possibly have invented that, because here, take a look at this video game or this video on the internet that proves that that idea or that gameplay mechanic existed prior to when Nintendo, in this case, or the Pokemon company, states that they invented a particular patent or mechanic or whatever the case might be. So essentially what actually happened here is Nintendo came out and said, hey, we're trying to obtain a Japanese monster capturing patent with touchscreen focus, and prior art was produced saying that, listen, you couldn't have possibly invented that, therefore you don't deserve a patent on that. And the evidence that they used to support that claim was a video on YouTube from 2013. Okay, they shared this video saying, look, in this video, the thing that Nintendo and the Pokemon company claims to have invented, that they claim to have a patent on, or they should have a patent on, is illegitimate because it already existed all the way back in 2013, right? And the best part about this, and the reason that I said earlier that this is so embarrassing for Nintendo and the Pokemon company, is that the actual video that they used as prior art was this video right here on a YouTube channel called Jolteon Plays, Pokemon Generations 3D Indie Pokemon Gameplay. That's right, folks, the video that single-handedly destroyed Nintendo's argument and was used as prior art is literally a video of a knockoff Pokemon game. This is not a real Pokemon game, although it looks better than most real Pokemon games these days. But they basically used this video to say that, like, look, in this video from, by the way, May 31st 2013, whatever Nintendo was trying to patent here already existed in this video. Now Nintendo obviously saw this, the Pokemon company saw this, and they were like, well, wait a minute, you can't possibly use that as prior art because this video literally violates their own copyright, right? Like, I mean, Pokemon Generations, this is not a legitimate Pokemon game. This is not something that should be allowed, right? And the Japan Patent Office basically looked at them and said, hey, look, we don't care if that violates your copyright. We're not talking about copyrights right now. We're talking about patents. And the fact of the matter remains that what you claim to have invented is present in this video from 2013. So whether it infringes on your copyright or not, that's a totally separate matter. They basically said, we don't care. We don't care that this infringes on your copyright. If that's a problem with you, you can bring that up with us at a later date. We'll figure that out later. But the fact of the matter is, the mechanic that Nintendo is trying to claim as their own is not their own because it exists right here in this obvious Pokemon knockoff clone. So in some weird roundabout way, Pokemon themselves is the reason that Pokemon can't obtain a patent that they're trying to use against Palworld, because Pokemon got so popular that it inspired third-party clones to such a degree that those clones could then be used to destroy them in this legal battle. And I just find that incredible. Oh, nothing makes me feel better than that, boys. Like, oh baby, that's kind of crazy. Now, like, look, I'm not supporting people stealing Nintendo's copyright, okay? Let me just be very clear. Don't perform any copyright infringement, okay? But you got to admit, in a sort of David versus Goliath situation here where Nintendo is trying to take down Palworld, I love the idea that a video that violates their own copyright is used to slap down their pathetic excuse for trying to get a patent on capturing monsters with a touchscreen. Get the fuck out of here, capturing monsters with a touchscreen. Who do you think you are, Pokemon? Don't act like you care about your Pokemon mobile games, okay? I know you're still supporting Pokemon Masters EX, but like, no one actually cares about that, not even you. All right, let's go back to the article and see what the Games Fray has to say regarding the impact of this decision by the Japan Patent Office, okay? This decision of refusal terminates regular patent examination. That's right, terminated, folks. The patent examiner is done with this. Nintendo has 3 months to request a formal appeal trial before a panel of Japan Patent Office administrative judges. It could also try a new divisional application, hoping that a modified claim language fares better, and Nintendo could simply give up on this application. Here are the wider ramifications according to the Games Fray. The Japan Patent Office demonstrates its commitment to patent quality by not granting outrageous game rule type of patent applications. This this is great news, folks, for everybody who's been looking at this legal battle for the last 2 years saying, wait a minute, Nintendo and Pokemon, they're trying to patent what? They're trying to patent what? It's been like a meme in the gaming industry at how ridiculous this entire battle has been, right? And so it's nice to see that the Japan Patent Office is looking at Nintendo and the Pokemon Company and saying, look guys, what are you doing? Get out of here. Kick rocks, pal. Scram. All right, you're wasting our time. It also clarifies that copyright infringement allegations are misplaced when the only question is whether an invention is novel and has an inventive step over the prior art. That's what I was just saying before. They're like, look, whether or not this is copyright in this video, it doesn't really matter. What we're talking about here is the invention of the actual patent that they're looking for, and this prior art proves that they did not invent anything, and therefore their patent application goes in the garbage. Okay, the related gameplay video is available on YouTube, and for the purpose of patent law, it serves its purpose of demonstrating the existence of certain concepts at a particular point in time. So whether it was a Pokemon knockoff or not is irrelevant here. And at the same time that Nintendo and the Pokemon Company are getting destroyed for a second time versus Palworld in Japan, by the way, Palworld 1.0 launched just a couple of days ago and celebrated 850,000 concurrent Steam players. This article says Palworld's concurrent player count has surpassed Dota 2, making it the second most played game on Steam. But wait a minute, folks, Palworld 1.0 briefly overtook the king of Steam, Counter-Strike 2, and devs can't help but bask in the victory. Quote, let me enjoy this moment for just a little longer. Ladies and gentlemen, here we can see this was the screenshot shared over on Reddit. Okay, and by just a measly 4,000 players, Palworld was able to overtake Counter-Strike 2 for just a moment, just a little bit. It sat at the very top of the Steam leaderboard, ladies and gentlemen, with over 500,000 concurrent players. And as you can see by the screenshot, the peak was 857,000 players online at the same exact time. That puts it above PUBG and almost in line with Dota 2, which is hilarious. You know, Nintendo and the Pokemon Company were reading these headlines over the last couple of days and they are seething, bro. They are absolutely losing their minds. And the way that I know that is because even the Pokemon and Nintendo fanboys over on Twitter just can't hold it together. They are just absolutely having a meltdown over there, grasping at straws, literally making things up, right? They're literally making things up, saying like, oh, well, ever since beta, they changed the design of the pals because they were sued by Nintendo. It's like, that's literally wrong. You're objectively wrong. They did not get sued on copyright. They did not get sued for the design of the pals themselves. The reason they changed the design is because, let me just hold your hand when I tell you this, things change from beta to version 1.0. Can you believe that? It's almost like the word beta has a literal definition, and it's somebody who sits online defending Nintendo and Pokemon all day on Twitter. Wait, no, sorry, that's the other version of beta. It means the game is not fully finished yet. Okay, and so of course they're gonna redesign the pals before the official release. What are we talking about? Then there was the whole thing about whether Panthalus was basically Kyogre, right? And it's like, again, we're grasping at straws here, folks. Like, look, I can sort of see where you're coming from because wait a minute, they're whales. Okay, yeah, so yeah, that's right. Whales look like whales, so whales do look like whales, and basically the whale Pokemon looks like the whale pal. Okay, in that regard, okay, I guess if we zoom all the way out and we're like, okay, yes, different versions of whales look like each other. That's like saying, oh, two different humans look the same because they're both humans. It's like, okay, that's just the dumbest argument I've ever seen. Like, do you know what Kyogre looks like? Like, have you, like, this is where I'm like, I don't even think Pokemon fans play Pokemon. They're just on Twitter all day and they're just making shit up, right? So yeah, okay, to the extent that a blue whale looks like a blue whale, I guess this looks like Kyogre, sure. So needless to say, if even Pokemon Twitter, it just cannot stop seething for 72 hours straight, you know that Nintendo and the Pokemon Company is just losing their minds. And by the way, just so we're clear, I've put dozens and dozens of hours into Palworld myself, okay? And the game is genuinely pretty fun. I mean, like, as much as it's fun to dunk on Pokemon, right? And to dunk on Nintendo and just like do things that make their community mad, sad, right? Of course, that's always fun to do. You don't get 850,000 concurrent players on Steam if the game isn't at least fun, right? The game is obviously fun. Everybody knows it. Everyone who's played the game knows that there is an enjoyable gameplay loop here. Even my girlfriend has been addicted to this game over the last couple of days. She gets home from work, she jumps right on the game, and people are legitimately having a blast with the game because it's actually fun. It's not because it's a Pokemon clone. It's not because people just want to own Nintendo, even though that is kind of funny, right? Their fan base is just so easy to bother. It's the most soy group of gamers on the internet, right? They just cannot handle any ounce of criticism. They'll have a meltdown. But these types of numbers, for a second time, by the way, okay, let's not forget that the original launch of Palworld was already tremendously successful, and so for them to do it again, I think that is honestly the most impressive part, right? Because if the game actually sucked, it could be a flash in the pan and then no one cares, but people actually care. People actually came back to the game after 2 years just to see what they've been doing, and as it turns out, everybody loved that. Okay, everybody loved that. The article here says it's not difficult to see why players have returned. Palworld 1.0 is one of the game's biggest updates yet, officially taking the survival game out of early access with a wealth of new content and systems. The update introduces the floating island of Sunreach, the long-awaited world tree, 72 new pals, a raised level cap of 80, the new awakening and mutation systems, expanded story content and side missions, reworked wildlife sanctuaries, and a long list of gameplay and quality of life improvements across exploration, combat, building, and base management. And the article on Games Radar actually points out over here, fellow industry heads are chiming in as well, with Pearl Abyss, the studio behind Crimson Desert and Black Desert Online, PR and marketing director Will Powers commenting, "It's a good feeling, well deserved." In response, Bucky says, "Thank you, gamer." Bucky is one of the leads for Palworld themselves. Shout out to Bucky. I think I follow them over on Twitter. Yeah, they're like one of the main faces of Palworld over there on Twitter, so really great work. In a separate post, Pocketpair CEO Takuro Mizubi celebrates the game's achievement, sharing his thanks with fans and expressing how glad he is that players are enjoying it. "It's wholesome, and it's nice to see a team that started as an indie group now thriving." Pocketpair's not done with Palworld yet either, with more for the game and beyond up its sleeve. There's still the Stardew Valley-esque farming sim Pal Farm to look forward to, which will be a nice cozy counterpart to Palworld's flagship title, and the admittedly cursed Palworld dating sim that's also underway at the company. And also, they forgot to mention, I think there is a card game coming out possibly at the end of this month. I could be wrong about that, surrounding Palworld. Okay, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, people are loving it, right? Even Forbes is posting here, both Palworld and Palworld 1.0 are in Steam's best ever player count list. The original launch of Palworld put it at number 3 with 2.1 million players, and now Palworld 1.0 is well, we know that this number is a little bit outdated down here, but it's at 850,000, so that's going to put it at number 14 ahead of Battlefield 6, which is kind of insane. That figure, of which is now 850,000, means that the second launch of Palworld is now inside the top 15 of Steam launch concurrent peaks ever. To date, there has never been a similar situation of a relaunch hitting a figure like that, though a few expansions may count for forever, like PUBG. CSGO also short of just morphed into its sequel, CS2. Here's the top 15, and that's what we just went over here. So then the real question is, with all of this success around Palworld right now, and with Nintendo and the Pokemon companies, patent infringement, legal battles all just shriveling up and dying in the sun, is Palworld just better than Pokemon? Like, is it just a better game than what Pokemon has been making lately? And lots of people are chiming in right now saying, like, actually it kind of is in many ways. Let's take a look at what this article says, posted over on Forbes. Yes, Palworld is better than Pokemon in many ways. Heading back to Palworld after 2.5 years, I can definitely see where Nintendo's patent lawsuits have needled the game. You can't glide with pals anymore, a concept apparently Nintendo owns and wants to keep to itself, and there is some sort of stipulation that you can't throw a ball and have a battling creature come out of it. Now you just hold up your hand and they appear. It's all rather absurd. However, there is not just a legal conflict between Pokemon and Palworld, but rather fan bases clashing as well. There's a contingent of fervent Pokemon fans who make it their mission to try and take down Palworld, calling it a cheap knockoff of the series that inspired it, or claiming that it outright plagiarized the original. That's right, folks, Pokemon fans are so delusional that they ignore the fact that Pokemon themselves plagiarized Dragon Quest, but conveniently use that exact same argument to talk about how Palworld plagiarized Pokemon, right? So it's a complete double standard, and even by their own logic, logic, it simply does not hold up, right? And that's how you know these people aren't like super intelligent when they're arguing over on Twitter, which is why I try to avoid most arguments on Twitter, because people over there are just troglodyte mouth breathers and it's just not worth engaging with them directly. But in some cases, those people are saying it looks like AI slop, a more common phrase now from 2.5 years earlier. And by the way, they were saying Palworld was AI back then. They've done zero research over the last 2 years. Surprise, surprise. They're completely incapable of doing something like that, right? That would take 30 seconds of their time and they would discover things that go against their own narrative. So of course they're not going to do that, because then they would have to admit that they're wrong. So why would they do that, right? The article goes on to say Palworld is not the most polished game in the world, and it has certainly taken ideas from a host of games, just like every modern video game, okay? Not just Pokemon, which of course does not own battling and catching monsters, not yet anyways, don't worry, they won't. But you certainly see echoes of Breath of the Wild as well in its open world. None of this, however, takes away from the fact that Palworld is a fundamentally fun game, and it is hardly the first title to borrow from big industry leaders. I think that's the part that Pokemon fans just cannot stomach, right? They cannot stomach the fact that Palworld is actually fun, and they just refuse to accept that. They refuse to hear that. They refuse to listen to that, because it legitimately hurts their feelings, right? I mean, these people are emotionally attached to Pokemon in a way that is tremendously unhealthy for them, such that they go to these extremes and argue with people on the internet that are just enjoying a video game, right? It has combined a number of systems under its own banner to create something unique, and if it was just a bad clone, well, we wouldn't be here, would we? That's what I said. Through all of this, we have to keep in mind that Nintendo is a monster company with one of the biggest IPs of all time, and Palworld doesn't have a fraction of its cash, yet it's doing all of this, creating a game that is almost, if not frequently, more engaging. Big true, ladies and gentlemen, big true, big facts, absolutely based. Oh my god, they actually shared a screenshot of Legends EA. They're so cooked. It's so over for Pokemon, bro. This is one of the worst looking games in the last 5 years. It's actually hilarious. I'll never let you guys live this one down, okay? I pointed out how awful Legends EA was the day the trailer came out, and people flooded me with hate comments, and you guys were wrong. Just admit it, okay? Just admit it. I was right from the very beginning. This game looks like ass, okay? You know it. I know it. Everyone knows it. Enough time has passed. You don't have to white knight for Pokemon anymore, okay? Just admit it. Legends EA was booty cheeks, and not in the good way, okay? The game is just disgusting. Look at this. Looks like it's an N64 game. It literally looks like that knockoff Pokemon game we looked at earlier in the video. But anyway, there's a line I've heard out there that if you truly think Palworld is better than Pokemon, you have nostalgia glasses on and haven't played for generations now. You're thinking only about the bare bones games from ages ago. The writer of the article says, I did play those, but what I do remember is eagerly looking forward to seeing how the series would evolve from there. Even when I was like 10, I was hoping we'd get a more action-based take on the series, a big, for its time, world to explore, and no turn-based combat. It never came, not in the ways I wanted, not until Palworld 25 years later. And they intentionally included a screenshot of Legends EA to point to the fact that, like, yes, okay, Pokemon has attempted that, but they're missing the part of it being a big open world. Legends EA is in one city. You can't even go in the buildings. How do you have an entire game set in one city, and the one thing that makes up the city is buildings, and you can't go in the buildings? What are we doing, Pokemon? What are we actually doing, right? And that's the point that the article is making here. It's like, no, we're not comparing Palworld to, you know, Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, okay? We are comparing Palworld to modern Pokemon, and it's not even close. Palworld blows it out of the water. It blows it out of the water, folks. The combination of survival mechanics, base building, live combat against pals and humans alike, world exploration and secret finding, breeding and min-maxing, and playing in the same world with friends all adds up to a tremendous experience, which is why so many people have logged on for Palworld 1.0. Game Freak has not innovated at nearly the pace it should have over all these years. This isn't to say Pokemon is crashing and selling terribly, but if fans are introspective, there is a lot of bare minimum progress going on here. Even brand experiments like Pokopia aren't matching what Palworld is doing here. Pokemon is not a terrible series by any means, but Palworld is not a terrible game either. Both can coexist, but yes, Palworld certainly has some advantages, expanding the genre more than Pokemon has in a long time. Don't tell the Pokemon fanboys, ladies and gentlemen, they are seething at this article because because they cannot believe that the truth is finally coming out. The broader gaming industry is finally looking at this and saying, man, yeah, we tuned out Pokemon about a decade ago because it looks and plays like shit. And this is what it should have been, and it never was, right? I mean, objectively, it just never was. Now, again, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, okay? Do I think Palworld is a better game than Pokemon? In many ways, of course it is. Of course it is. I mean, what are we talking about? Obviously it is, right? But does that mean that there is no hope for Pokemon? Does that mean that Pokemon is a failure? Does that mean that I don't love Pokemon? The answer is no. Of course I love Pokemon. I'm in my 30s. I grew up on the damn series, okay? Pokemon Yellow version taught me how to read, and I still have that cartridge and Game Boy Color to this day. I never sold it. It means too much to me, okay? I didn't know how to read back then because I was 4 years old, and I wanted to make sure I could select save in the menu, that way I wouldn't lose my progress, right? I quickly learned that if you don't save, you lose your game, okay? So I had to restart over and over and over again until I learned how to read the word save. I would ask my parents like, hey, which one is the save button, that way I don't lose my progress? And I learned how to read from playing Pokemon. Okay, so of course I love Pokemon. Of course I want Pokemon to succeed, but unfortunately the ball is in Pokemon's court to deliver a quality product, and we haven't seen a super high quality product since the 3DS, in my opinion, okay? And lots of people would say that we haven't seen a quality Pokemon game since the DS or even Game Boy Advance, but that's a topic for another video. But if you made it to the end of this video, make sure you drop a thumbs up on it. It really does help out the channel a ton, and you might think you're subscribed to my channel because you've seen a couple of videos, but you're actually not. Double check down below.